Did you guys know that moose are actually excellent swimmers? They can dive down to 20 feet deep to feed on aquatic vegetation. So think about that next time you graph over something and you see a large object. It could be a moose. And talking about moose, makes you start thinking about hunting season. Hunting season is the fall time, and the fall time starts pretty much around now. And this is for the month of September. The top 5 baits that I will show you guys for the month of September. Because right about now, if you haven't already, especially for those in the north, you're probably starting getting around your first cold front of the year. And the first cold front of the year really starts to shake everything up, change from that summer bite and start getting into that fall pattern, and really just throws things into this big word of transition. Transition shakes everything up. It makes fish all over the place. It makes things inconsistent and can make things quite confusing. And so really what you have to do for the month of September, where a lot of places, majority of the country, obviously a lot in the south, you guys might still be summer most of September, but a lot of September is a month of change. Everything's changing. So you have to be a junk fisherman. You have to have multiple different things ready to go and just be fluid with the moment and be instinctual in how you're fishing. So these baits will reflect that. We're going to walk through them and show you why I think that they're great baits for that transition time during the month of September when so many things are changing. They can be tough, but they can also be great if you are willing to take advantage of certain techniques and patterns that are present in the month of September. So first and foremost, one I want to go with that's a great summer bait, but also is I've found really good for tough fish around the country. This is especially clear water. I'm gonna preface that. Definitely for clear water, but on tougher fish is a very easy bait to fish. You can easily overcomplicate it, but I think it's the simplest way to put it is this bait is simple and stupid if you let it be. And that is a spy bait. A spy bait is a very, very, very simple bait to use. It's very effective. And you guys can see if you've never seen a spy bait before, it's got a prop here on the front and it's got a prop there on the back. This one in particular is the mainstay for a spy bait, and that's the Duo Realis spy bait. And it's one, obviously you can see it's got some little scars on there. It's been munched a time or two for me. Big believer in the spy bait, especially in the summer. And guys, it's simply cast and reel. Once you get your setup dialed, which I'll walk through in a second, basically all you got to figure out with a spy bait is just how deep do you actually want to fish it. There's so many different places you can fish it. I wouldn't really recommend around timber, but if you're feeling dangerous, go for it. Where this is a big advantage is obviously you see a lot of it in the smallmouth realm around sand flats and things like that, but largemouth do love themselves a spy bait. Deep grass lines, inside grass lines, if you're able to keep it up high enough, if you have enough depth, that is. But deep grass lines especially, or even ledges, if you're willing to let it just fall down a little bit. And so the spy bait is quite simple. This is where it comes down to counting your depth, counting down how far it's going, and then simply just reel. You can try to shake it if you really want. I've never had a fish that wants this thing shaken. It's just a slow crawl, and they come up and they either bump it or smoke it, and you'll find it out pretty quick if there's fish there for whatever reason. Especially clear water has a lot of drawing power, but also gets a lot of freaking bites. And so my equipment for this one is typically a 7'6", a longer spinning rod, 7'6", medium light. I'm going about an 8-pound braid, so very, very thin braid, 8-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon. Now you can actually go a little bit further if you want and go for monofilament. That way it stays higher up in the column. But if you want it to sink, kind of like I do, I fish it a little bit deeper along deeper grass lines right now in the month of September. I'm going to go fluorocarbon and do 8-pound fluorocarbon. I have these swapped out too. They come great with stock hooks, but I have these swapped out to, I think, size 6 Ichikawa treble hooks, Ichikawa light wires. But give the spy bait a try. Don't be afraid to throw it around grass clumps, things like that. It's a lot more versatile than it gets credit for, but it will get you a lot of bites. All right, number two. Number two is the month of September, especially talking more northern, but grass becomes a big player, obviously, around the country, but grass starts to die out as the temperatures start to die off. And so when you find the last remaining healthy grass, that is a great time to take advantage of flipping. And one of my favorite flipping baits, especially if you're on a pressured fishery or the fish are being weird, is I take a Texas rig with a ringed EWG hook, and I throw a craw tube. That is the Big Bite Baits craw tube right there. It's a mix between a tube and obviously a craw style bait because it has those little craws here on the side, like so. That is the color Tilapia Magic. That is the juice, letting that out of the bag. But that is awesome. That's an awesome freaking bait. I usually throw, I think, on a 4-aught, but you can go down to 3-aught as well if you'd like. But have that straight 15-pound fluorocarbon, 17-pound fluorocarbon, depends on how thick of stuff you're flipping. But that is, especially some finickier fish, that craw tube, you get some freaking bites. So next time you're flipping grass, flipping docks, especially this time of year when fish are just being weird and they're moving around in transition, pick up that bait instead of, you know, just your standard stuff that you might be throwing, like a creature bait or a jig or things like that. All right, the next one. We actually have 2 topwater baits. So in September, fish are feeding heavy on bait. It's a great time to throw topwater. Obviously, you've been throwing topwater all summer, but it almost seems like some of these bigger fish move shallower, and knowing, especially after you have that first cold front, that kicks that internal instinct in these fish's brains of, we just had this first cold front. That means winter's coming. May not be here next week, but it's going to be here eventually. We should start packing on the food so that when winter does come here, we have enough of that nutrient, energy, yada, yada, all that scientific talk. But basically, it kicks a gear in of saying, hey, we need to feed more. And so typically what that does for some bigger fish especially, they move shallower and they start putting on a feed bag. That is a great time to go down the bank with a topwater walking bait. Right here, this is the new Rapala Jowler that I've actually been becoming a fan of lately. Catching some nice ones. You can find that video over on my Beat the Fish channel. That sucker, just go down the bank, whether it's a Super Spook, a Jowler, a Cane Walker. So many different brands have great topwater baits, you know, like the Vixen and things like that. Just pick up a big one and go plug in down the bank, and I guarantee you, plug down the bank, but also some inlay points, things like that. They'll let the fish tell you where they're going to be setting up, but they are going to be looking for a bigger meal, especially some bigger fish up shallow. So give that a rip. Typically what I like to do is a 7'2" medium heavy moderate fast. That is my top water go-to rod, and then 30 or 40 pound straight braid. That way what you're doing is basically letting your setup do the whole work for you. So that as long as you're plugging away, and when it blows up on it, all you gotta do is just reel and lean. Great time to be throwing a top water walking bait. All right, we'll save the last top water for the end, but on the same strand of while some of these fish are looking for some bigger baits, at least the bigger ones, there's also a great time to go to a smaller bait if you're looking for numbers, just the quantity of bites. Now, typically around here, we don't go to this bait much throughout the summer. You don't see it being played much, but it works very well in the transition. I don't know why just yet. I think it's because these fish are feeding on smaller bait profiles. Especially you see that with like the TVA, they're feeding on smaller bait, like threadfin versus say gizzards in the fall time. And when you're doing that, you can run into a lot. You can catch big ones, but you run into a lot of them. Whereas like that big spook bite, I'm telling you guys, that's more for those bigger fish. Where this is more for just go catch a bunch of numbers, with you potential to catch some big ones, and that is the trap. That we got a Strike King red eye shad right there, and we got the Nomad trap right here. And these are 2 1/4 ounce traps, very smaller profiles. You can see it's here. I mean, here's my thumb. There's the, whoop, there goes my bait. There's my thumb, that's the bait. So 1/4 ounce trap, very small profile. Throwing that on a very similar rod to the one I was just talking about in the top water, but with fluorocarbon, like a 7'2" medium heavy mod fast. That way you let that rod load. But that smaller bait profile, and obviously a lot of people know how to fish a trap. Smaller bait profile can play key in the fall, bringing back the trap, whereas the trap shines in the spring. It also shines early in the fall in that transition. It allows you to break down a lot of water, and with that bait being able to work a lot faster, it's going to get you in front of a lot more fish, and therefore hopefully have the ability to get a lot more bites. And with that one, I'm going to run on just straight 12-pound fluorocarbon. Definitely change out your treble hooks, especially if you're using like red eye shads from Strike King. They're not the greatest stock trebles. They'll work okay, but you're probably going to lose some fish if you keep those on there. But a great bait to go and throw in the month of September. And so, the last one for the month of September, we got a whole freaking box full of them right here. That is a buzzbait. More specifically, a baby V-twin. That is a 2-blade buzzbait, baby buzzbait, that has a very interesting squeal. So being double prop, a buzzbait, just similar, whatever reason, especially dirt shallow, buzzbait gets these fish to react, especially in the month of September when fish are everywhere, covers water, especially gets those fish shallow to come up and say hello. So that mini V-twin is a unique one, and that smaller double prop gives a little more high-pitched squeal that those fish don't see, but also simply can't beat the single prop. Both these are true south. That's about the only buzzbait I throw, but a great design on it. And skips like an ever-living dream when you have a buzz toad paired on the back. But great bait to be picking up this time of year to cover ground. And so those are the 5 for September. Hopefully you guys learned a little nugget there and take some of these and go out and catch some bass for the month of September. Let me know down below if you agree, don't agree, as well as if you put them to the test and you guys catch some fish. Links to all these to Omnia Fishing are down below if you guys want to use code SERIES10, save 10% off. Appreciate y'all for tuning into this one of the Bass Fishing Playbook. Watch another one of my videos, learn something, and we'll see you on the next one.